Da 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 da. Come on, where is that? I need to make an announcement on Discord, but I don't see. Oh, wait, here we go. I'm going to spam, going to places. All right. Alrighty. So. Ooh. I need my PlayStation Classic. I have no idea where my PlayStation Classic is. I had two of them on the shelf. Here. Here. One of these. I guess we'll just crack them open and see. I already took the eMMC off of one of these, I just don't remember which one. Ah, it was this one. First time's the charm. Alright. Take this, take the thermal pad off. Alright, like that. Put both of these aside. And nobody's watching. But that don't matter. Alright. I gotta get all my shit anyway. Where did I put that eMMC reader? Where did I put that? eMMC. It
like an MC, but an EMC. EMC. Oh, shit. I have one in a box that I don't want to use because that means I can't return it. I don't know where the other one went. Which is a problem. Well, I guess I'm opening the new one. That cost $150. Alright. How much storage are you adding? I don't know. I bought this a while ago. Oh, 128 gigs. So I'm going to be upgrading it from 16 gigs to 128. Or at least I'm going to be attempting it. Yeah. So, what I need to do is I need to find my eMMC reader and writer, which is sitting around here somewhere. See, this is what happens when you have a messy desk. Never get a messy desk because you'll never be able to find anything. You'll never be able to find anything when you need it the most. Problem is I have two messy desks, which means that it's even harder to find something. Oh, alright. I guess I'm just putting the one that I had previously. So, that was never going to return this anyway, I guess. So, for people that don't know, the PlayStation Classic has 16 gigabytes of onboard storage, which is just enough to hold about 20 games on the saves, possibly 21 games on the saves. Currently, there's no mod out there that really lets you modify the internal storage. Because it can be dangerous. You can overwrite things. You can lose all your games. If the script isn't built right, it can really mess things up. That's kind of why when I first started writing BleemSync, it was done in a fashion that was it basically overmounted everything. And what overmounting means is when the file system asks for a certain path, if it's going to look in a certain directory for games, you basically redirect it to the USB storage. So Mad Monkey figured out how to basically make a payload that would run off of the USB stick. I ended up taking that and figured out how to overmount a lot of the games and a lot of the saves and stuff like that created BleemSync, and there's other things like the database needed certain entries and stuff like that. If you look at my YouTube channel, I have a proof of concept that I posted on like January 5th or 6th. It was pretty early on. It was only a couple days after the system was released, on actually running Tony Hawk's Pro Skater off of the device, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, and that was kind of like the first, I think it was one of the first loads of an actual game on the system that wasn't one of the built-in games. And what I did with that is I basically made a script that would copy the ISO, or the BinQ file, I believe it was at the time, off of the flash drive onto the main storage, and then I wrote to the database an entry for that game. So now we're kind of going back to the original hack that was on the eMMC, and I'm going to try to upgrade the eMMC chip, which is a storage chip on the PlayStation Classic, in order to expand the storage. If I can get this thing out. What was holding me back previously about this is I have the eMMC chip here. I've had this for about a good 3-4 months, I think, at this point. What's held me back is there is this, in order to probably get the system running, in order to get the system running properly, you have to have the operating system on it too. And in order to do that, you basically have to dump the old storage and then write the new storage with the old storage, and then you can like kind of go ahead and expand the partitions and everything like that. But I haven't had. I bought this eMMC chip here, which is a slightly different shape than the one that comes on the PlayStation Classic. And my reader-writer, I have not had there's a template in here that I'll take out and I'll swap out with one of these, which will be the same size. If I can figure out how to get this out. I need my tweezers. I have a hook tool around here somewhere that would make this a whole lot easier, but I can't find my other reader. There we go. So I have a dump that I made in a previous video, in a previous stream. I've got that dump somewhere, so I will basically just write this this chip with that dump. I want to make sure I have the right template here because I ordered a bunch of these. Okay, so this is the 12 by 16. Yep. Okay, I gotta match up the arrow with the arrow, which, where's the arrow? Where is the arrow? The arrow's right there. Okay. So I'll put this back together. The arrow goes to the arrow. Maybe. I'm dumb. Arrow, arrow, arrow. Like that. Okay. So this will fit in here like this. And then I can screw this back on and hold the template there. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm not even going to try to write the dump. I'm just going to make sure that this eMMC chip works. If it doesn't work, then I'm just going to go on to the super storage install. I expect it will because I bought this chip and it should show up as 128 gigs when I plug into my computer. Make sure I line up the dots. Like that, I believe, like that. Arrow, arrow, dot, dot. Okay. I should be able to just close that and get USB extension. Alright, so I need to unplug the device here. I can get unplugged. I'm gonna set up a desktop screen share before I move forward here. Alright, there we go. I'm going to do another. Actually, what I'm going to do. I haven't set up my OBS profiles at all, so I'm going to call this best cam. Make another scene called desktop with best cam. Copy. Copy. And then I'm going to copy. Okay. Okay, so now you can kind of see my desktop at least. I'm going to try and move OBS out of the way. Still want the chat though. Can I get just the chat? No. Alright, so I'll move that down there. That'll be fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up plugging this into here, and it should pop up as a device. I hope. Otherwise, I might just try this chip, which would be great, because it was like 60 bucks. So device manager. I don't have any speakers on this thing, so I won't be able to tell if it actually connects or not. So something's enumerating. Ooh. Format disk and drive D. So if we go to, I'm going to go computer management because I like computer management better. I'm going to go disk management. We should have 128 gigs. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. All right, so we're going to format this. exFAT. We're not even going to use this. Volume drive D, properties. Okay, so this works properly. Our eMMC chip is verified to work. That's a great first step. Now what we need to do is we need to find my dump, which I have under PSC dump. So now I have all of these, but I'm pretty sure I made a dump that was just the entire thing. If not, I might have to source my chip from somewhere. Let's see. I have two computers that I need to go off of, so. Yeah, sorry, I have to kind of figure out where I put this dump. Oh, it's right here, PSC dump. Okay, cool. I knew I put it somewhere. So, this is just an image Okay, I'm gonna clean up this board real quick because it's gonna bother me otherwise. And I have cloth around here somewhere. Right here. I'm also gonna take my contacts out because this is really small stuff and it's hurting my eyes. Because I am nearsighted. There's one contact if you want to see that. And there's another. Oh man, my eyes hurt. All right. So I just want to clean up this board. I have some leftover flux here. That is pretty much the consistency of gum at this point, which is kind of gross. So I'm just going to take that off real quick. Like so. And there's actually quite a bit here too. God damn it. So the eMMC chip will go here when we actually go to solder it back on, or solder the new one on. What's really nice about the chip that I got is that it has the solder balls on the other side already. So we'll have to clean up the space where it's going a little bit. Not just clean the flux off, but we'll have to clean the solder a little bit. And basically use a desoldering braid to clean it up. It's pretty good as it is right now, but there's still some balls on there. But basically, with eMMC chips, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this on camera. I'll switch over to my other cam. So this is the underside of the board. It's a BGA layout. BGA stands for ball grid array. It means that you basically have, believe it or not, a grid of balls. You can kind of see from the profile here that they kind of stick up from the bottom of the board. So since this is reballed, or it's pre-balled, I should say, I won't have to like try to use a solder stencil or a stencil or anything like that and drop new ones in. So that's cool. So we'll clean up this board. We'll take those solder pads off. But the first thing I want to do is just write the new image to this device, which I should be able to do with Win32 Disk Imager. My chat dropped off, I think. I can't see how many people are watching. I got 6 and 1 on Twitch. Alright. Restream chat sucks. Okay, so we're going to switch to this cam. I'm going to verify that this disk is still here, which it looks like it is. Drive D, yep. Okay, so I'm going to use Win32. Let me download that actually. Disk Imager. I believe this is what I used to make the image in the first place. So we're going to go to, I have to copy this off the server, really? fucking hate Steam sometimes. Alright. Downloads. What do we have in downloads that we can delete? Screw it. Steam. Come in. Okay. Sorry. I need to clear more space off my stuff on a regular basis. Because this is a 16 gig image. 14 gig image, but whatever. Okay, there we go. Pop it again. Cool. Alright. Copy, copy, copy. Copy, copy, copy. This is a really neat device. It costs quite a bit, and I don't understand why. I think they're just trying to bank on the idea of this just being a niche product, because all it is this chip here does USB to SD, because the eMMC standard means that you can basically read the chips with an SD card reader if you want. So this is essentially an SD card reader with an extra quick swap socket thing. But now that I have all of these little templates, I'll be able to hack more things, possibly, and fix things. And you know, if I have a cell phone that dies or something like that, I'll be able to fix it pretty easily, or at least get the data off of it. I guess I can start out my soldering iron. And we can clean up this board while I start to write this image. Okay, so now we can take 132 disk imager, go to the desktop, find the PSC dump, and we're going to write this to D. Yes. Oh wow, that's going to take a long time to write. Alright, so we'll clean this up, and maybe we'll do the super storage install while this is writing. Okay. So, I'm going to push this off camera there. Take this. I'm going to take a bit of flux. And I'm basically just going to clean up these pads here. Like so. This doesn't seem to be doing a great job. Why is that? Let's bump that up a little bit. This is probably some of the worst soldering braid I've used. It's not very thin, so actually trying to do stuff with it is painful. I had some other solder braid laying around, but I'm pretty sure that ended up in the trash somehow on accident, which is fun. And what I really need to get is there's some braid out there that has flux already in it, but you should still use flux too. You should still put flux on the board, but it's just kind of a nice extra little that helps it soak it into the copper. So ignore my shitty technique here. The other thing I need is a fume extractor. But I want a good fume extractor, not just a fan. I guess I could open up the windows. It's not that cold out today. But yeah, I need a proper fume extractor that actually like filters it and everything. We're just gonna get this as best as we can here. It's not gonna be great, but we do what we can, right? We're gonna try not to lift any pads. If we do lift pads, I do have another PlayStation we can use. It's kind of my main one, and I would rather not, but seeing as they're only 25 bucks these days, it wouldn't be that big of a loss, to be honest. I'm just gonna inspect this visually. I think I tore off a couple pads. Let's get this light in here. Woo, that's bright for you, sorry. Yeah, I tore off a couple pads. It doesn't look like they're connected to anything. So, I'm not sure that's actually that big of a deal. But we can look up the data sheet for that chip and see. Putting all these screws right there, I guess. What I should have done is I shouldn't have used I shouldn't have used my iron. I should have used my reflow station. Because that way I wouldn't be dragging things across. That's where I made my mistake. Okay. So we are looking at a SEC 40. So web browser here. SEC. Oh, not SEX, SEC. 840. B041. KLM. AG. One Jet D. Ooh. Oh, and hey, look, it's a bunch of pictures of this. The PlayStation Classic. Yep. Let's just search for this. Data sheet, embedded MMC. Hello, John Williams. That's actually funny. I'm going to see tomorrow. I'm going to see Star Wars Empire Strikes Back with the Milwaukee Orchestra doing the music over top. Should be pretty fun. Pin out, pin out, pin out, pin out. Okay, we are looking at what pins are missing. We are missing. I'll look at it like that. We are missing the second one from the left, which is empty, and the fourth from the right, which is empty. So we are in good shape. Cool. So I essentially tore pads off of a couple spots where the eMMC chip is. You can kind of see them on cam. It's a little hard, but they're there. I tore them off here and there. But that's okay because they're not used for anything. So let's see where this write is at. It's still running at 5 megabytes per second. We're about 10 minutes in. There's about a half hour left. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a super storage install. I'll clean this up a little bit before I switch tasks right away. But I'm going to do a super storage install because we are waiting on the new eMMC chip to have all the data written to it. Because, as I said before, we have the donor chip that I dumped in a previous video, all 14 gigs. I have a new 128 gig module that I need to write the backup to the dump of the original software. And then once that's done, then we can go ahead and solder it to this board. Yeah, it's pretty clean. We're going to be putting more flux on it, so it doesn't really matter. So, I basically need to record a new super storage install video. I did one the other day, but I never hit record, and the last one I did before that was about a year old. 6 months old. So, I have a customer's SNES here that I need to install to. So we're just going to use this as an opportunity to do that. I've got a 128 gig SD card, so we'll see if that works too. Okay, that's all. I'm gonna clear this out for this video. Those can go in. There. This can go there as well. I'm going to hit record this time. Let me make sure that Alright, welcome to the Super Storage install tutorial. Here we have a Super Nintendo that was sent to us by a customer. We're basically going to be taking this apart, soldering the board on. So we have our Super Nintendo and we have our Super Storage. You'll get it in a packet like this. It comes in 3 parts. We have the micro SD card adapter, which is here. We have behind it the actual board that we'll be soldering, and then we have a flat flex cable that goes between the two. Other things you'll need, other than your system and your Super Storage, is you'll probably need some flux. I like to use Amtech NC559. This is really good stuff. If you don't solder all that often, you can get a smaller tube. They make this in like a 30 cc and a 10 c quantity. I recommend, if you're going to be using flux, that you get some isopropyl alcohol. I have some in this little container. It's basically just used for cleaning up the flux. You'll obviously need some solder, which I have misplaced at this point. Where did my solder go? And this is where we cut. I was soldering a layout. Oh, it's underneath my plate. So you'll need some solder as well. I have some stuff that I just bought off Amazon. This is 60 lead, 40 tin, or something like that. I don't know. Standard solder will do fine. This is thin enough where it'll be okay. You'll need a soldering iron as well. I have a nice little solder station. You want an iron that you can control the temperature of. If you don't have an iron that you can control the temperature of, you're going to have a bad time. And it just makes the install a little bit more difficult. And you also need a screwdriver. It just takes a standard small Phillips screw head. So as long as you have one of those around, you should be good to go. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but I think that's it. So we can go ahead and get started. I'm basically just going to take this apart. To take it apart, you can flip it over, and there's 4 screw points underneath each of these pads. So I'm just going to take this pad off. And just stick them on the bottom there, right next to it. You can use tweezers if you want, or you can use a little spudger or a little razor blade or something like that. Just be careful that you don't cut yourself. But these just lift off, and then underneath here there are screws in each of these holes, as you can tell by that top left one there. So I'm just going to take my screwdriver and undo all of these. So now that the screws are out, we can flip it over. And one thing you'll want to be careful with, this is a problem with most of the NES or SNES classics out there. There's a ribbon cable connecting the top part to the bottom part, depending on your system. So just make sure that you lift it up carefully. You can kind of lift up and kind of see where that ribbon cable is. It's this side right here. It's right in there. So just make sure you lift it off, and then you can take it apart like that. And then we can disconnect that ribbon cable right away. Okay, so here is the inside of the SNES Classic, or technically this is a Famicom, I guess, Super Famicom. Anyway, we have the 2 controller ports here, which connect to the board via cables. So we can go ahead and undo those. They should just lift out. They'll take a little bit of wiggling. Don't force it too much, but it does take a little bit of effort to take it out. And then we have 5 screws in the board. We have one here, and here, 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 and here. So just undo those screws. And don't worry about putting screws back in the right place. The Super SNES Classic and the NES Classic all use the same screws throughout the entire system, so you can kind of mix and mash. The next one here. So then you can lift out this board. This is the main motherboard. That's basically all there is to it. It has a heat shield on here to take this off. Just kind of twist it. You'll see here that this is where the thermal pad is. So you'll kind of twist it and lift, and then it should come right off. You'll see the thermal pad right in there, that blue piece right here. Try not to touch that with your fingers. If you get oil on it, it doesn't make it as effective. So now we can take the bottom half and put it away, and we're left with the bare circuit board. This is the top of the board because this is where the controllers plug into. It's also where the main CPU, RAM, and NAND flash are. If you have the 2016 version of the NES Classic, the pads that you're going to be soldering to are going to be right in here, kind of right by this RAM chip. With the Super Nintendo and the 2018 version of the NES Classic, the 2017 version of the SNES Classic and later on, and the 2018 version of the NES Classic and later on will use this board layout. And the pins that we're concerned with are on the underside, right here. This group of pins right here. You can see what they are because they're labeled as VCC, RX, TX, and ground. So now that we have the board apart, we're going to go ahead and solder this. I'm going to use a soldering vise, kind of a PCB vise. I got this off Amazon. It's pretty cheap. It's also very useful if you do a lot of this type of thing. You can just tape down the board to like your work surface. That'll work fine. Just make sure it's secure. Right there. I'm going to try to keep this in focus. So like I said, we're going to be soldering to these points here. So now that we have that, I'm going to take my packet that came from my super storage. And you're going to want to grab this piece here. If you have a 2016 NES Classic, you'll have a slightly different board. That board will look like this, and you should be able to see how this lines up on the top side. But since we have a SNES Classic, we're going to be using this board. And this is really simple. It's basically just going to lay on... Whoop, I have this at an incline, so this is a little slippery. I dropped it again. It's basically going to lay on here. You can kind of see how this lines up with all these holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little piece of tape to secure this. I'm going to be using Kapton tape. You can use Scotch tape or whatever you have laying around. And you want a piece that's just long enough where you can secure that board to the motherboard while you solder. So I like to put it on the tape like this. And then we can go ahead and kind of line this up where it needs to be. Like so. And now this board is basically ready to solder. So I'm just going to take my flux and I'm going to put it in this space here. You want to make sure that you get all of the holes. You can use a little bit more than you normally think. It's not like paint or anything like that. You don't have to be too stringy with it. Stingy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my iron and my solder, and I'm just going to solder these points. You'll kind of see, I did this first one here. You can tell when it's a good joint because it will be shiny, and it won't have a like an ice cream tip to it, or a chocolate morsel or whatever you want to call it, chocolate chip. It won't be chocolate chipping at all. It'll just kind of flow from the bottom board to the top of the top board. And every point should be like that on the board. Okay, and now that those points are done, we're going to do the last 2 points. There's 8 points in total. The other points are being covered by the tape right now, so we're just going to take this piece off. Where did my tweezers go? I can just take this off like this. Just like that. Alright. Okay, so now I'm going to use some more flux and put it on these 2 pins. Pads, rather. And then I'm just going to do some soldering. This ground pin will be a little bit more difficult than the others. And that's because of the way that the thermals are designed on this pad. We kind of have a large ground plane that's this light gray space, or light green space there, rather, that likes to absorb a lot of heat. So that pad will be a little bit harder to do. But it looks like we have a pretty good install here. I'm just going to inspect it. Yeah, it seems to be good. So I'm going to clean it off, and then I can show you in more detail what that looks like. So I like to use some alcohol and a microfiber cloth. You can also use Q-tips. Actually, I might use a Q-tip the first part, and then I'll hit it with the cloth. I'm just going to clean that flux off. Now I'm going to use my cloth with just some alcohol on it. I'm just going to rub this off. You want to make sure to use alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and not acetone. Acetone will eat most plastics, most ABS plastics. So if it's not fully cleaned off the board, it might affect your case. It might eat into this connector here. I don't remember offhand what kind of plastic that this connector is, but just avoid using acetone altogether. So now that this is clean, you can kind of see, I'm going to have to adjust my camera a little bit here. Okay, so you can kind of see how these points flow from the bottom of the board, of the green board, to the top of the black one, to the super storage. So that looks like a good solder job. These connections are shiny, and they don't have any chocolate chipping to them. So I would say that's probably a successful install. So now we can go ahead and we can go ahead and kind of finish this up. So I'm going to take this out of the vise now. And then the reassembly process is basically just the opposite of what we did previously. So we're going to take the bottom piece here, and we're going to line this up properly, like so. I'm going to take the heat shield and put this back on. Actually, I forgot to, what you want to do is you want to open up this little lock here. There's a little locking mechanism on the board adapter. And then we're going to take our flat flex cable that came in the kit. You're going to insert that into this connector. Like so. There will be a point where you can't insert anymore, and then you can just lock down the tab like that. Now we can go and we can put this back in the case the right way. And then we're just going to screw in everything. And the fifth one is right there. And what I like to do is I like to plug in this cable here on the Super Nintendos, this controller port, and then this one. And then this is kind of left sitting free. And then you can take your SD card slot and undo the little locking mechanism. Insert the cable, and then close it. And usually what I like to do is I like to take a little hot glue and put it on the heat shield and just kind of mount this. You don't have to squish it all the way. It's probably a good idea to leave a little gap between the heat shield and the card slot. It just makes it a little bit, it won't short anything out or anything like that. You can also use tape to mount this. I've done that in the past, or like a 3M double-sided piece of tape would work fine. And that's basically it. This customer has included an SD card that they would like installed, so we can go ahead and just insert that here. And then we'll take our top piece and just kind of like the opposite of what we did before, we'll plug that in. This is a little bit tricky. Sometimes I like plugging this in before I screw the board down, but it's not too difficult to just kind of get it in there and wiggle it in. Now I can take this and put this on top. I mounted this too close, actually. I mounted this too close to the power switchboard on top. I think the best thing to do is to make sure that you are not covering this cable with this slot, and then it should fit on properly, like this. There we go. Now we can go ahead and just screw this down on the last 4 points. Okay. And then I'll just take these pads. Put them back on. And that's it. That's all it takes to install the super storage. I don't think this took that long. And you should be good to go. The noteworthy thing is this is not going over the software installation. That's a whole separate process. I will probably do that in a separate video. Certain cards may or may not work with the system, so if you have problems with the software working, try a different card. But yeah, otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so that was just a recording. Just don't leave. I'm still gonna be streaming. I'm just gonna check this file transfer. Whew, 71%. Okay, so we still got some time left on this. I don't know what else to do really till then. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I'm actually, you know what, I'll try to do the software on this and I'll see if this card works. Currently with the super storage there is issues, and it's not due to the super storage at all. It's due to the way that we're thinking the way that Nintendo configured some of these systems. I can't plug that in there. I can do it. But yeah, basically what happens is some SD cards don't work. And the system won't boot if it's inserted because it says it can't detect it, but it's only on boot. If you put in the card after boot and then like reboot or try to mount it, it'll mount properly, which is the weirdest thing. So I'm still convinced that it's software, but hack you real quick. God, everything's just falling off. What is happening? All right. Okay, so we're gonna see if this boots up. I really hope it does. It doesn't seem to be. Nope, I haven't fixed the SD issue yet. It's an issue that. So basically, let me start from the top. So the SD card issue is that if you have certain SD cards inserted into the system, and you do the SDU boot install and everything, and the card is prepped properly, it won't boot with the card inserted. Dan the Man and I have taken an extensive look at what is going on. I still believe that I don't think there's anything wrong with the hardware, because if you boot with the card not inserted into the system and you then put it in and then run the SD prep, it will reboot the system, do the SD prep, format the card properly and everything, but then it won't boot when it reboots. So there's either something wrong with the detection in the boot ROM of the SD card that's preventing it from booting. It almost feels like it tries to boot off the SD card, but it can't mount the SD card at that point for some reason. So it just kind of fails. it seems to be an issue that happens with all winter devices, because I actually have a 64 gig card here. Do I have my Orange Pi laying around? I had it laying around. But basically, the Orange Pi is a single board computer that's similar to the. Here we are. It's similar to the Raspberry Pi. Looks like this. And I can insert this card into the system, which I believe is prepped with Orange Pi. Like so. If I grab my power cable, I have no idea if this is plugged in or not. So I get lights there on the Ethernet, but they just kind of stay like that. And the system never wants to boot. And I've tried this with another card, and it's worked fine. But it's basically like the same thing as like just not having a card inserted. Maybe part of the bootloader payload is sector-based storage. No. It's a like I said, I've looked around. There's only a couple posts on the internet that actually talk about the actual issue, and it seems to be a lot of people who just use the Orange Pi for a Pi replacement, and it just seems to be something that happens with all winter cards or all winter CPUs. And this is the H3, which is A53, I believe, still. Which is the same chipset or the same instruction set as the classics. It's a really frustrating issue, and I hate telling people that like I'm trying to figure out what it is, but I don't know what it is. But yeah, it seems to be an issue with all, not all cards, but a lot of cards. But the weird thing is too is like, and the reason that we're kind of thinking that it might be something with how the bootloader is configured, or the boot ROM rather, with how the boot ROM is configured, is Dan says he has a 2016 NES that I've soldered a super storage on for him, and so like I know the install is good. I know it's worked in the past. I know it works with a certain type of card that I have, but he says it will work with any card, which is interesting. So if anybody has any ideas, let me know. I'd be insanely interested. What I really need to do is there is an R16 evaluation board out there. I need to buy one of those because I'm planning another project possibly with R16, or possibly with the H3, some sort of all-winter A53 compatible processor. Possibly making a single board computer of my own, but that's down the line, whatever. But yeah, they have an evaluation board out there for the R16 that would be really interesting to get that write an image to it, even just like Ubuntu or something like that, and try to get that working. Because that's kind of where my thought process goes, is like maybe let's remove this out of the equation. Let's use a board that has a soldered on micro SD card slot, removing the hardware out of the equation, because we know that this board is made to work. I have 2 or 3 of these now. These boards will work. They will boot off of USB. They'll boot off of certain micro SD cards, but it seems like newer micro SD cards won't work for some reason. And unfortunately, it seems to be all the big common ones like the Samsung Evo or the SanDisk Ultra. And it's really weird because I know I've done installs for people before where they've put in. I think J.W. Peppers actually. He talks a lot in the scene and he's around a whole lot. I've done like 4 installs for him, and I know for sure that he's had at least like uh, two installs that have had 256 gig SD cards, SanDisk Ultras, and they've worked in the past. So um, I'm planning on taking a couple days off work, um, or not just a couple days, but like a couple of weeks off work where I can start working on some other products and also tackle that issue at the same time. So that's going to be coming up in late June, early July, maybe. I'm going to try to schedule it with Summerfest because Summerfest, I actually want to go this year, I think. Maybe. I seem to get mine in work by installing the SDH mod twice. Haven't had an issue since. Yeah. Yeah, like that's the weirdest thing is some people have gotten it to work. I haven't gone into like the electrical characteristics of the SD cards, if like that's actually an issue. I do have a confirmed card from somebody that's a 64 gig card. It's made by Micro Center, and that's worked perfectly fine. I actually did the install for him, and I was surprised. I'm like, wow, this is a newer model of the Super NES, and it's a 64 gig micro SD card, and it works. So I think I have to start just like hoarding some of these cards that work and the ones that don't work. Unfortunately, that gets expensive, especially when you get to the higher end of the storage, and then just kind of run diagnostics against them and see if there's any differences there. But yeah, I'm just talking right now until this dump finishes writing. I'm actually going to grab a cup of water real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, I lied. I got a beer. I got a Toppling Goliath Pseudo Sue. It's one of my favorite beers of all time. It's refreshing, it's tart, it's hoppy, and it's expensive, unfortunately. It's not too expensive. It's about $10 for a 4-pack. Oh, that is expensive, I guess. I'm a millennial. Everything's expensive. Alright, will this write finally finish soon? I don't even know what my... Okay, that looks good. %. Yeah, so how's everybody doing? It's Saturday. It's not necessarily super warm here. It's like 60 degrees. It was 85 earlier, and it's Wisconsin. Like 85 like yesterday. So it was super nice out. But unfortunately, winters here seem to last forever. So like once summer actually runs around, we'll have like, you know, a couple weeks of it, and then it'll be done. Okay, so it looks like it finished. Mounted drive D again. Hopefully we should see, because I think the PlayStation has like 5 or 6 partitions. Oh. Speed drive D. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Okay, yeah. That's a lot more than that. Okay, so I believe it wrote this properly, which is, it shouldn't be surprising. Disk management. So the new eMMC chip should be prepared. $101. We have 14 gigabyte. That's our GAA data partition. It looks like it's got all of that. I'm going to see if I have VirtualBox installed on this machine, which I do. I'm going to just boot up this image and see if I can read this disk and make sure that all the data is there. Because once this thing is soldered, I won't be able to take it off and then resolder it because of the balls on the bottom. So this, unfortunately, is kind of a one-trick pony. If that's even the right phrase, I don't know. I like to talk into my ass. It happens quite a bit. Kernel requires... what the fuck is this? This worked before. Power. System. Processor. Motherboard. What? I have a 64-bit processor. I don't know why this is yelling at me now. Let's check the boot. No, where's boot in systems? Order. I have 64-bit Windows, like, yeah, 64-bit processor. I really have 24 gigs of RAM. Oh, yeah, this is right. That's right. This is my DDR3 machine. 64-bit operating system, 64-bit processor. This kernel requires x86 64 CPU. Power off. Alright. So, remove, delete all files. No. Linux, Ubuntu. Why can't I choose? What the fuck? Alright, do I have a... kill me. How is this not... It won't let me install any 64-bit shit. What is this? What is this? Let's try this. Let's go into the computer management. Services. There's no services for VirtualBox. Usually there is. I literally just ran this VM like the other day, so that's, I probably need to do a reboot is what it is. I don't know why. Shouldn't make a difference, but okay. So I do want to verify this before I do anything. So I apologize. We're going to download 32-bit Ubuntu. I have a pretty fast internet service. I have like a 400 megabit internet service. So 1604 will do fine. Fucking torrents. Just yeah, it shouldn't take too long. Downloads. That's only like half my speed. So, what's going on in Discord? Just support stuff. Yeah, I mean, I really think it's just that I need to reboot this computer because this thing, like, I hear you, but this thing's been up for 3 days. My other machine's probably been up for like my main desktop's been up for like 3 months. And I really just need to like reboot my shit more often. My main server actually it's been up for about 280 days or something like that. I run my machines for a long time. 4096. We'll give this 4 gigs. Yeah, I think I have Hyper-V disabled too. That actually makes it really, like, I hate that it's enabled by default on Windows 10 Pro nowadays. Massive delay from YouTube comments, by the way. Maybe we'll restart the stream. I don't have any delay on it, so that I know of. I'm not like a streaming master or anything like that, so. Downloads. 386. I'm 386. Start. Yeah, see, yeah, I think I know what happened. I pulled the power on my machine, and it I'm pretty sure it disabled yeah, it just disabled my virtualization stuff. So, oh, hey Mark, how's it going? Welcome. So I'm just gonna say that it's I'm gonna go ahead and say that it wrote properly, and we're gonna fuck it and go with it. We're gonna solder it. Why not? Sounds like fun, right? So, like I said, we have a successful write to our eMMC chip here. This is our replacement. It's a 128 gig module. I think that should be enough space. If not, It's gonna be enough space for me. I don't think there was that many games on the PlayStation that were really all that fun anyway. I'm mainly in it for the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. So I'm going to clean up this board a little bit more. There's a lot of flux on it. It's pretty ugly. So actually what I'm going to do... I'm just going to pour some isopropyl on it. I'm going to take my handy little toothbrush. Just going to scrape that up. And I'll go in. Oh, that was a good one. I already had a little bit to drink today. And I'm having more, so this stream is about to get fun. So I'm just looking at this board. That looks okay. So I think this is probably ready to be soldered too. I have to make sure I grab the right alcohol too, and not the, I have to grab this, and not this, because the other stuff is disgusting. And actually really bad for you, so don't do that. Okay. So we're going to break out the PCB vise again. And we're going to use the reflow station this time. And I'm going to adjust the focus on it and everything so you guys can see properly. But what we're looking at is this chip in this point here. We're going to basically be taking this chip, which I should find my other tweezers too, so I can do this properly. We're going to take this chip and put it on here, like that. There's a lot of points under there. I've never really attempted something like this in the past, so this is going to be a journey for you and me. But what better way to try it, right, than just to go for it? You're actually replacing the internal storage chip. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Why can I not adjust? This is what we're going to do. I'm going to go like this and bring the camera up. And you can see my crotch cam. Yeah, we're actually replacing the internal chip because that is kind of the only way to really do it. Ooh, I got a message on Discord. Dan's asking how I'm going to align the chip. That's a great question. I don't have an answer for that. If he's watching right now, I don't know if he's watching or not. I'm going to do my best to align it. What I've noticed is that, if we put these down like this, we've got these little solder points here that are bald, which I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my soldering iron real quick and get rid of those. Because I feel like when we solder it, this chip was not made for this board. This was made for a 13 by 14 millimeter eMMC chip, and this is a 12 by 16. So this has some extra solder balls here, which I feel like would interfere with whatever we're trying to do. So real quick, what I'm going to do, now that I'm thinking about it, is I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So I'm going to take some tape, some Kapton tape, trusty little Kapton tape. this, basically just adhere this to the board. Kapton tape's also really nice because it doesn't leave a residue like most tapes do. I only discovered it like a year ago. Not that I discovered it, like somebody told me to use it. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. It's quite useful. Uh, 128 gigs is enough for 40-50% of the PS1 library in the US. When you get the process to upgrade the PS1 storage down, how much money costs to upgrade? That's a good question. I don't know if I'm actually going to be offering services to upgrade. For now, I can't really see myself doing that because it's kind of high risk. High risk in not necessarily your motherboard or anything like that. Like I'm sure with enough tries and enough chips, I could get that process down pretty well. It's just kind of, you know, it's I don't want to keep buying 128 gig chips and having to reball them and all that type of thing. So I don't think I'll be offering it as a service unless somebody really wants to pay me a whole lot of money to do it. Honestly, what I would do is, if this works, and I have no idea if this works, what I would do is I would almost talk to a board repair house, somebody that will do like MacBooks or iPhones or just smartphones in general. I'm trying not to touch the middle pins. I would talk to them and see if they'll do this for you, because a lot of devices, it'll be expensive. Like, don't get me wrong, it'll be expensive because that's what board repair costs. But they usually do eMMC swaps on cell phones. So this should, I mean, this is basically the same exact process, assuming that it'll work. Yeah, the Kapton tape's heat resistant, which is amazing. It's actually probably its best feature. So I'm going to clean this chip up real quick. I can measure it, make a jig, keep it in place, but yeah, I don't have time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. This isn't like a huge, it's not like soldering a CPU. Not that I know how to solder a CPU or know really what I'm talking about right now, but just judging my videos online and judging by people's experiences, it seems like this type of BGA chip is not really that difficult to deal with. That's not working. I'm just gonna hold it. I made that worse actually. It's really like your CPUs and GPUs are really the painful ones to deal with. See, I taped that down and thought it was great. That was not a good idea. Okay. Now we can wipe this off. Okay, that seems a bit better. It's not the greatest job, but it'll work. Okay. So, yeah, I didn't knock off any balls. I just knocked off the extra ones that I didn't need. So, so this isn't the same as reballing on GPU. It's similar, but GPUs usually have a lot more pins, especially if you're talking about like CPUs. Like if you look at Intel chipsets, most Intel chipsets or Intel sockets are like 1155, 1156, or 2011. That refers to how many pins are on the CPU. The more pins you have, the more difficult it's going to be. Obviously, that doesn't apply to mobile GPUs because I'm pretty sure mobile GPUs and I'm pretty sure that doesn't apply to mobile CPUs because mobile CPUs, I think, usually have less pin counts for that reason. But all the same, it's probably not as this is probably not as difficult as doing a GPU or even like this CPU. So I need to make sure, I need to look at this board and the orientation. So this is my other PlayStation Classic. This is my good one. This is my golden standard, if you will. So we're gonna be aligning the chip like that. Sorry, you can't really see that. We're gonna be aligning it like that. So since these are the same height, kind of the same height, I can kind of line this up and kind of picture it. But yeah, Dan, this is gonna be difficult, but I can kind of see. Let me put this to the side like this. So this is how I'm gonna go about it. So if we put this chip on here, which the top side of it needs to be clean, and I kind of put this like centered, I can see that like there's a couple traces here that kind of jut out, and this kind of aligns with this dark part of this big trace that comes across here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to align this chip based on how this one is distanced from here, from this line, this dark line where the gap is, and these vias right here. And I'm just going to hope that it kind of falls into place properly. Too bad you didn't outline the chip. Yeah, I should have done that. I definitely should have done that. Unfortunately, I was inebriated at the time. And you don't make the best choices when that happens. I'll clean this up a little bit more before I put it on. Shit. But at least we know a couple things. We know that this chip works. We know that we can write to it. We know that we can read from it. We know that all the partitions look like they're popping up properly, so that image probably wrote properly. So I'm going to align this like this, which isn't going to be great for your camera angle, but it's going to be easier for me to install. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put enough. See, and this is one of the things. Like, I don't know how much flux is like a good amount of flux for this. So I'm just going to do. I'm not going to do a whole lot. I've cleaned up these pads, which should be okay. There's none of them are really bumpy, so that'll kind of melt down. And I'd be lying if I said my heart wasn't racing. All right, so we're just going to plop this down like that for now. So I'm going to get it aligned. That's about where I saw that. We're going to look at this chip here. It needs to go this way more. There was not extra solder on the board. what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cell phone. Actually, no. I have light. I'm going to be doing this off camera, but basically I'm going to be tilting the board a little bit to see if things might be lined up properly. And I can't really see, so that certainly makes it difficult. It's at least even on the board. All right. That looks just about right to me. Actually, what I'm going to do first, so this is a 12 by 16 chip on the new one. This new one is a 12 by 16 chip. And I can't even measure it. Where am I? I'm going to make sure that this old one is the same dimension. 11 and a half by 13. Okay. So the old one is right here. And this isn't going to focus because I've got it on manual focus. So it's 13 millimeters wide here. It's 11 and a half millimeters wide. This is 12 millimeters wide by 16 millimeters long. So by judging by that, I can look at this board here, which I don't know where the focus is going to work on this thing. Now I can look at these vias right here, and I'm going to overlap those by 1/4 of a millimeter. That might not even make a difference. I'm gonna overlap those. I'm gonna basically match this chip and where this is positioned in reference to these two and this via here. And I'm just gonna shift it over 0.25 millimeters. This I'm just gonna measure based on this trace here because that looks like a pretty good distance. Couldn't you have just used the calipers to measure the distance of the pads? I could have if my calipers were not dead. They have a dead battery right now, unfortunately. Okay. So I just want to. I think that's good. Honestly, I really think that is good because I see a little bit of the circle. How much is a millimeter? Yeah, that looks good. I'm happy with that, actually. I'm quite happy with that. So we're going for it. We're going to solder this now. The thing that we want to make sure is that this isn't going to move all that much. And I'm going to put it on a low... This is my heat gun. I don't know if you can hear the fan on this thing. So that's highest setting. I'm going to bump this thing down. It's at 500 degrees. I'm going to bump it down to 450. That's Fahrenheit, I believe. So that's the highest air setting. I'm not going to use that because it can push the chip once the flux kind of melts. I'm going to go way down to like there. Sorry, I'm going to move the camera. So get this out. That. Alright. Does that look even? All right. I'm just going to give it a little heat. Maybe get that flux a little warm and pliable. And I'm basically just going off of how to solder this based on what Louis Rossmann and his videos and what he's done in the past. I'm going to use a little bit of tape. Like that. Basically don't want to affect any other part of this board. I don't want to knock off a capacitor or anything like that. So I'm just going to soak this in heat a little bit. And yeah, Dan, you're right. So once this heats up and the solder actually starts sticking, it should kind of want to align itself based on how the balls are aligned. And like the thing that I've seen from Louis Rossmann's videos is when he does an SMD component like this, it usually usually wobbles back and forth on the pads, and then it'll stick. Let's see, okay, now we got a little misalignment here. I should be able to poke it just a little bit where it'll fall into place. Because the solder balls are enough solder where it won't bleed over into the other pads and the other balls. And it should just be enough to hold it. Oh, I got flux on my Kapton tape. Oh well. I'm just going to use flux just for the hell of it. On top now. Oh, this is smoky. Doesn't look like it's adhering at all. Okay. It's trying to go back into, I bumped it a little bit and it's trying to fall back into a certain spot, so I think that's in the right place right now. I'm going to hit it a little bit more just so it sticks properly. Actually, it looks a little uneven right now. Should be okay. Should be okay. The problem is this backside. I don't have a real good spot to poke that. Alright, I'm going to start to remove heat. It looks fairly aligned. And it was trying to fall into that spot. I can't tell if it's even on the board or not. There's a little bit too much flux. I'll use a little bit of white here, sorry. It looks pretty even. So I'm going to start to remove some heat. Worst case scenario, I have to get a reball template and then try reballing this. Because I don't want to buy another $60 module. That's ridiculous. I need a drink. And again, it's not a big deal if I like ruin this board or anything like that. I'm worried more about ruining the module because the boards are like, again, you can get one for 25 bucks these days. So, it's not that bad. I don't think I'm gonna fry the chip. Worst case scenario, I'll have to reball the chip. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. So I'm gonna let that sit. I'm gonna let that cool off for a minute. Then I'll clean off the flux. It looks pretty good. Just by judging from, it looks square at least. So it's kind of harder to see on your screen, but judging based on the vias that exist there. Actually, is that a little too far over? It might be. Oh, wow, yeah, that is way far over. I think. Oh, yeah. That's way far over. So, shit. Maybe that's just how it is. I don't know. I've never done this before. So, we have 3 vias here. 1, 2, 3. Compared to this board, those vias are right here. What's really interesting though is like, and I don't know the physical dimensions of this eMMC, and maybe it's not like these are vertically the same, or like vertically if you like judge this way as the vertical. So what it looks like to me is that this this space right here, which is in focus, and I apologize, and I'll try to get that in focus. So this via right here, this little trace, that is exposed the exact same way that this one is. The replacement chip is definitely not narrower. It's a little bit wider by 0.5 millimeter. And that's it's probably it's probably shifted this way about 0.5 millimeter. So it could be that this bottom of this chip is just extended 0.5 millimeter that way, which would be okay. So, I'm going to clean this off. For the person who was asking how much this would cost to upgrade in the future. A lot. A lot. I also don't have the right tools, so I can't. And I bought the wrong chip. But you also have to ask yourself, how much is it actually worth? Honestly, like, the PlayStation Classic is a cool thing. I like classic systems. I like having one system to just do what you want to do, which is like play PlayStation games. But are they really that cool? I need Q-tips. I need lots of Q-tips. I did burn off a lot of flux. I possibly, yeah, you can see how burnt that flux is right there. That should be like a green, or like a booger color. Booger color is exactly what I would describe flux as when you clean it off. That is earwax color. So this chip is on here. It's soldered. It's not moving. Not moving at all. So that's a positive. Yeah, the PlayStation Classic's cool. I like the controllers. The controllers are super nice. That's honestly like why I like these classic systems more than anything. Is just the controllers themselves. Fuck it, I'll cover this entire thing. The controllers themselves are really nice, and they're usually really high quality, and they're usually like maybe not cut from the same mold or like injected from the same mold, but they're at least like from the same designs, which your companies like Ipit do and Hyperkin and stuff like that don't have access to. So maybe they do with like the new. Yeah, I can tell this chip's not moving. Maybe they do with like the Xbox controller or whatever the Genesis controllers are going to be for whoever's doing those controllers. But the big thing is the plastics used and the rubbers used on the buttons and the controller itself. That leads a lot to how the system is going to feel and how it's going to act. Yeah, I mean, that guy that gutted a classic for the Pi 3 case knew what was important about the systems and the case and the controllers. Exactly. It's not about the actual board itself. This is a really cheap ARM processor board. What matters about this board is the design of the case and the design of the controllers. So I have no idea. I have no idea if this is going to work. And there is a difference between the OG controllers and the new controllers. There's a little bit more support in both the SNES and the PlayStation Classic. There's a little bit more support, like physical support behind the circuit board. Nintendo does have a nice looking UI. Yes, I like the PlayStation Classic menu. I really do. I know people don't like it and think it looks ugly, but it's very much that 90s sort of look, and it matches kind of what the PlayStation looked like. So I'm perfectly fine with that. So, I mean, I guess all we have to do now is test it. Um, I can adjust my camera. Hi. I look ugly, I know. I'm just going to put it on this TV here. I'm going to hook this up. Sorry, it's a mess. I know. Deal with it. So I have to find a USB cable, which I have right here. It's not going to smoke. It's not going to smoke. It'll turn on and it probably won't do anything. I'm going to be able to tell as soon as like the light comes on the system. Like, it's not going to work. It's just not. I can tell. If it does, Dan, you'll have to help me with partitioning it properly and expanding it. Where do I have an HDMI cable? Where's this running? Where's this running? No, that goes into USB. That's not the same thing. All right. Got an HDMI cable here. Which I'm going to plug in here. And I need a power source. I believe this thing is dead. Sorry, bear with me for just a moment. USB power and power cable. So what we're looking for is we're looking for an orange light, which is the green light and the red light together. We're not going to see it because it's not going to work. It's not working. Let's at least rule out this adapter. Yeah, this thing's not powering. Okay, so what we're going to do is probably off by that 0.5 millimeter. This is my office, by the way. This is not my bedroom or anything like that. I live with my girlfriend, and I have my own office. TV's not on, but that doesn't matter. Because I was just looking for it to like power on at all, and it wasn't. So we're gonna go back and we're gonna try to resolder this. Yeah, I'm gonna nudge it over till where I think it's going to be aligned properly. So we need some flux. Copious amount of flux. I'll put some on top too. Who cares? Use all the flux. We're gonna nudge it over. That wasn't. Where did my tweezers go? That's not like enough power or enough amperage where it would actually fry the chip, so I'm sure that the chip is still fine. It's just not, I can tell it's not aligned properly at this point. Where'd my tweezers go? God damn it. Spudger. I'm relying on you. Alright. So many pulls of flux. So many pulls. Gigapulls of flux. I'm going to go without the tape this time. Because it was actually causing an issue rubbing up against that capacitor. While this heats up, I'm going to take another drink. Okay, so it's still on. Needs a bit more heat. Or just move this up a little bit. Oh, no, no, no. Okay, so now that is sticking in place. That's better. That's much better. That's sticking where I think it would kind of sit. I believe. Thereabouts. It's not quite where I feel like it should be, but. Oh, that's smoky. Yeah, see. I'm probably using too much heat. Yeah, that wants to move right back into that place, so I'm not going to move it anymore. I'm going to let it sit. It wants to stay in that place. And who knows, maybe there's a bunch of pads underneath that bridge now, and I don't know what I'm doing, which is the case. I mean, I don't, so... I'm just going to let it close down a little bit. Ooh, Android Central did an article on BleemSync. How to add games to the PlayStation Classic. Updated in May 2019. Shout out to all the BleemSync people who have taken my place. And done a pretty good job. Still some things I would change, but they've done a good job, and they deserve credit. And it's a big project, you know. It's software development kind of sucks sometimes. Sorry, my desk has got some flux on it, and it's bothering me right now. Ugh, look at that. Gross. So I'm gonna let that cool. And I'm sure this isn't going to work as well, but whatever. Hey Dan, what does it take to do UArt on the PlayStation again? Because I don't know if I've ever done it, to be honest. But I remember like some of the voltages were messed up or something like that. It might be interesting to hook this up to UArt when it's not booting and see what it's doing. And maybe see if there's like some partition on the eMMC that's not running properly, and then it's just a software thing and not necessarily a hardware thing. 1.8 volts, yeah, that makes sense. So with this method, you have to use BleemSync to change games. No, nothing. With this method, nothing is developed for this right now. If I do it, I will probably like craft something, some like command line thing or something like that, or do a fork of BleemSync or something like that. Because nothing writes to the internal storage right now. What I'd probably do is fork off of the BleemSync work that I had done for doing like folders and stuff, and then doing something. But I'm not gonna spend too much time in software getting something like this to work, because I don't have that much time anymore, and it actually put a really big damper on my personal life working on BleemSync. So I'm trying not to go down that rabbit hole again. Okay, I guess we can try it again. This one looks like it looks like it's shoved over this way a little bit more than it should be. Just by comparison, you can kind of look at the old board. God, it's all opposite from where I'm looking. You can kind of look at the old board, and if we look at like, I'm basing it on this large trace here that goes across. This guy right here, not these two black ones, but this lighter gray or lighter green one. If you compare it to this, like there's a lot of space in between there. So I don't know that that's aligned that way all that well. No, it looks like it needs to go this way more. We'll plug it in, we'll try it, and we'll see. But it looks like it needs to go this way more. So, whoops. We're going to HDMI first to build suspense. I'll even turn on the TV this time. Not that it matters, because this TV you can't switch. I hate this TV. You can't switch inputs unless there's an active input. So if this doesn't work, we'll try bumping it again. If that doesn't work, if it really feels like we're not aligning it properly, then we're just gonna stop. Yeah, no lights. Yeah, that's not aligned properly. I have 3 original Xboxes in this room right now. I am attempting to do the 128 megabyte RAM mod on one, which looks like it's soldered properly. I don't understand why it wouldn't work. The other 2 are just soft modded. And I did a stream the other night of hard modding them. I'm putting mod chips in them because the mod chips are like $8 now. I just like the original Xbox. It's fun to hack. It's fun to write different BIOSes. It's fun to mess around with them. Alright, so we're going to use a Gigapol of Flux. Yeah. Oh, that is so coated. That looks so gross. Alright. I'm going to tighten these down a little bit so it doesn't try to shift all that much. Basically what I need to do is I need to shift it that way. And I need to do that with my tweezers because the spudger was not, it worked a little bit, but it's not the greatest. So I'm going to leave this part will fall. I'm going to find tweezers. Here's a different pair. That'll work. Oh. Yeah, Xboxes are, I think Xboxes are kind of getting more popular. I really like the system. It's got some, it doesn't have a whole lot of exclusives on it other than your, like, Halo and all that. It's got Fusion Frenzy, which I don't actually like Fusion Frenzy all that much. But I think it's the best out of that generation, to be honest. Because even the exclusive it doesn't have, it's still just a good system with a good amount of good games on it. And it's super fun to mod. If you can mod it, it'd be a different story, but like, I just dropped like a 2 terabyte drive in one of mine, which is really awesome. And I really like the design of the case on them, to be honest. I like the bigness of it. It feels like a PC as a console, which it was. The other 6th gen systems, or whatever gen they were, PS2 and the GameCube. Oh, no, that was too much. See, I fucked that up. God, this is fucking hot, man. Okay, that looks aligned. I think. No, it doesn't. Maybe more like that. Let's try that. Again, those points are so small. I'm probably off by like a row, and it's probably that they're shorted now and everything. So, the more times I do this, the less and less I expect it to work. I got the alignment off on the first one. So we're just going to back it off. And we'll let that cool down again. Oops, sorry. No, it's more back than it was. Before it was, I wish I could get my camera controls up so I could focus properly. But, so before, and it's going to be out of focus, and I apologize. We have this thing here, which has a via here and a via here. We have this trace. I'm judging based on the dark line of this trace and where the chip falls. Where I looked, where it felt like that the chip should fall when I had just the bare chip, the new chip on top of this chip, and was kind of lining it up. That chip should fall on this side of the dark line a little bit, but very, very close to it, almost touching it. And I believe that's kind of where it's at right now. And then it also should be in the same general location as where these vias line up. This is I can tell now that this is definitely the best attempt I've had so far, but that doesn't mean it's going to work, and it probably won't. Not for lack of confidence, but for lack of like logically, it doesn't make sense why it would work at this point. More Q-tips, more cleaning. And again, I'm not the type of person that does like board repairs like this. I can fix basic traces and stuff, as Dan would know. But I can't. I'm not the kind of guy that does BGA soldering. It's a little beyond my skill set at this point in my life. Every other soldering I can do just fine. Yet the 0603 resistors, I can do those, no problem. Other surface mount stuff, no problem. I can do a NAND, I can do a TSOP 48, I can do that just fine. I can do most QFP packages just fine. I cannot do BGA. I need more Q-tips. More Q-tips. I don't even have to clean up all this flux, but we'll do it for the hell of it. Yeah, so this is about where I would expect it to lie. Maybe. Probably not. It's actually this way. Like, it's actually this way a little bit. Assuming that this all lines center. Oh man, this is annoying. Alright, we're gonna try it. We're gonna try it. Oh. Oh. There we go. Alright, I'm taking bets on an orange light. I'm not betting on it right now. I wouldn't take those odds. Yeah. It needs to go the other direction more. Alright, fourth time's the charm. I'm gonna be doing this for hours, aren't I? Until I'm like super happy with the alignment, I'm just gonna keep doing this and doing this and doing this and doing this. And I know I said like 5 minutes ago, like, oh, this is the best attempt I've done yet. That's not right. If I can't get this aligned properly, what I'll do at the end is I'll just take off the chip and I'll put it back in the reader and I'll see if it'll work. Oh, the pitch is like, the pitch is the fucking, goddamn, EMC pitch. 0.5 millimeter pitch? Sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah, 0.5 millimeter. Which is pretty small. This is the best camera angle you're getting. I'm not adjusting this all that often. So, alright, so we need to go. Where are my tweezers? I'm going to take it, I'm going to push it this way. And it's not going to work. But we're going to make a good attempt. It shouldn't be riveting, it should be soldering. Yeah, I get to have a bad joke once in a while, right? Yeah, this isn't even aligning straight anymore, so I don't have much confidence in this anymore. Yeah, and I just totally screwed that up now. we're gonna try that. Um, it looks aligned. It's a little bit over that black line, but I did burn a whole lot of flux, and I put a lot of heat on this thing at this point. Um, and it's aligned compared to this thing, this little knob, this little trace. It's aligned to that pretty well, but it's not going to work. I'm not confident in it. And I think I burnt that capacitor quite a bit too. So that's only the power for the second port. Like that capacitor is only for the second controller port. So I'm not too worried about it, but this thing is not going to work. So it was a good attempt, I guess. I'll cool down for a little bit. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do this yourself, it could possibly work. Maybe. The thing is that the eMMC standard has a couple extra partitions on it that are for like booting, basically, like boot ROMs. So for those that don't know, eMMC and SD, like your regular SD card, are pin compatible. You can use an eMMC chip instead of an SD card, but not necessarily vice versa, because eMMC has a couple extra partitions. One of them is like a boot partition, and some devices use those. So like the SD spec doesn't implement that partition. So electrically this could work, but it's all but down to whether or not that partition is used. And I don't think anybody's confirmed or denied that that partition actually exists for the PlayStation Classic. Judging on kind of the shoddy nature of the system itself and how they left so many software exploits open, and how the menu isn't as good as the Nintendo Classics, but it's usable. I would say that it's possibly likely that they didn't use that boot partition. I don't think they really cared if somebody was to desolder their eMMC and put a new one on. People aren't dumb like I am. Ooh. All that in there. I really use a lot of flux, and I really burnt a lot this last time, so I possibly heated up the RAM chips too, so there's always that possibility. Dan, are you still watching? Do you still want that resistor slot? Because I gotta do some shipments this weekend, and I can send that out for you. It's just the prototype one. I've got other boards, but I really don't think it's a hardware issue at this point. Alright. Cleaned. Let me clean my hands real quick. Got tons of flux on them. So this one, as far as I can tell, it looks aligned about where I think it should be. Like finally, like just judging based on the distance from the chip to this trace and this chip to the vias, it's overhanging these vias a little bit, and it's a little bit on this side of this trace here. Yeah. Oh, damn. I agree. I tried like seeing if that there was a way to contact Allwinner, but I don't see one, so I don't know how to proceed from there with that type of thing. I mean, I guess if we got it down to like, okay, these are the confirmed sizes, or the confirmed cards for these sizes, buy these, it would reduce that trouble a lot, because at least we have options then. But I would want to, basically do a survey. I could do it I could email my clients and do a survey, see whose card has worked, what device they've had, what storage they've had, and then go from there. All right, power, no light, no light, no light. Yeah. Yeah, this board's dead, unfortunately. And just press on that chip, I guess. I don't know what else to do. Yeah, that's not going to work. So, unfortunately, my soldering skills aren't great. I guess the last thing we can do, and then I'll end the stream after that, is let's try to I'm gonna no, I can't. The thing is like I can't take the chip off and expect it to go back on at this point because it's a BGA chip. So I'm fairly confident that this is not going to work. I would possibly be interested in taking this to. I know there's a board repair place in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee. It would be interesting to take it to that place to see if they could solder a new chip on. But that would probably be a couple $100 to do. So, I'd only be doing it for like notoriety, I guess, but I wouldn't be doing it. So I don't know how much credit I could take for that and everything like that. But, I just don't know if it's worth my time or patience anymore. I wanted to at least get these eMMC things because at least like when a new device comes out, I'll be able to dump it. And I'll probably be one of the first people to dump it. Just like with the Sony, with the PlayStation Classic, I was that person. So that's at least something to look forward to. So we're just going to take this chip off now. I'm not going to use a whole lot. I'm not going to use flux at all, really. I'm just going to take it off, and then I'm going to put it back in the reader and see if we have all the partitions. And if the partitions are good, then at least our storage device is still good. And then maybe that will make me want to consider putting this on again, or like having someone reball it and put it back on. I'm just like getting a quote on how much I would charge, because the guy in Milwaukee is actually like, he does iPhone board repair, and I think Mac board repair, and he doesn't charge all that much. So it might be worthwhile. Oh, excuse me. It might be worthwhile too. To do. So I'm just going to no, reballing you really got to do with a stencil, like a ball stencil, ball template, whatever you want to call it, because of how the balls are aligned, and you have to have a certain diameter ball. And it's funny because when we first started talking about, I forget what brought it up, but I remember when I first desoldered the chip from the board and I sacrificed the first PlayStation that I bought. I was talking to Yifan Lu, and someone asked, like, well, can't you just put the chip back on? And he's like, no, you gotta have like all this equipment, and you have to align it properly and everything like that. And this is just proof of that truth. Woo! Woo! Oh yeah. Yeah, you can see what happened here. So I'll take this chip off and I'll clean this off a bit. But you can see what happened. I'll zoom in. Or I'll bring it closer, I guess. So my focus isn't gonna work. But you can see all of the you can see all of the bridge points there. And this was just a piss poor job of aligning things. So it was probably failing because those points were all joined together because I shifted around so much. You know, if I could find some cheaper EMMCs, I might try this again, especially kind of in the same, because I bought the wrong physical size chip. It might be worth trying again for that, but yeah, unfortunately this didn't yield amazing results. So I'm gonna clean this up and I'm gonna drop it back into the reader, and we'll see if it can still work as a thing. Oh, look at that, my iron is off. We'll see if it can still read. If it can still read, it's still a good chip. The other thing to do would be to basically do it the way that Dan was talking about, which is how I was originally going to do it. Basically, I would buy a new PlayStation Classic, or I would ask somebody to send theirs that was working, if they had a working board or something, so I could attempt it. But basically, it would be to put tape or do like a spray paint or something like that on the edges of this chip and exactly where it lied. Get a chip that's exactly the same size, align it perfectly in that space, and then heat it up. And then I could possibly even use like an oven of some type. I've been meaning to get a soldering oven for a while, so that might be a good excuse to do something like that. But yeah, getting a chip that's physically the same size as that one and putting it in the exact same place would probably be the next way to do it. Yeah, JW Pepper was talking about that. Yeah. So maybe I'll hit him up because I've done a couple installs for him. Maybe he'll help me out, throw some stuff back my way. Because I just don't want to keep dropping money in this if I don't have to, obviously. So if I could get a donor board for cheap or free, that would be nice. Even 25 bucks, I just don't want to keep throwing away 25 bucks here and there. So what I'd do is I'd get a cheaper eMMC. I would try it again, because you can get like, even getting like a 32 gig is like, it's probably only like 15 bucks. So getting the eMMC chip that's balled properly, and then taking off the donor one, marking it first, then taking off the donor one, and then putting the new one back on. That would be the way to do it, I think. Alright, so I'm just gonna dip this chip, dip this chip. Oh. Q-tip. I attempted to solder this by this chip was already balled when I got it. I tried soldering it by applying some flux and aligning it by eye. That alignment did not work properly, and thus the chip did not boot. But there's silver linings in this process because I made a few mistakes that I probably shouldn't have, such as I used the wrong size physical chip. I use a 12 by 16 millimeter chip instead of a 13.5 by 11 chip, which is what the PlayStation Classic uses. I did not get the alignment properly when I did my first attempt, and therefore first, second, and third attempt. So that probably contributed to a lot of the shorting out that was happening. Unfortunately, I don't know why I decided to buy a 128 gig chip to start out with. That was kind of stupid. Not that this chip is worthless or anything like that. But in order to use this again, I will have to reball it. Which is not... I've never done it before, but I've seen it, and it's not a fun process. So, I'm going to switch back to desk cam. And I'm just going to take my reader here, pop it open. And at least I have these templates now, so when I want to dump another device that has eMMC, I will be able to, which I'm sure will happen at some point in the future. This isn't cleaned properly. Okay. So we'll try that. Line the dot with the arrow. Clamp it like that. Power. Reading. Okay, so it still reads. Yeah, it's all still there. So this chip is still good. Which means that it's possibly salvageable by reballing it. I mean, I could even sell it for half price and say it's not balled and get some money back on it. But I guess it depends on size. Isn't eMMC cheaper than NAND once you get to a certain size? Yes, absolutely. eMMC is It's not quite SD card prices, but it's not expensive at all. Like I said, this chip cost me about $60 on eBay. It's a genuine SanDisk chip, and it came pre-balled. In the future, uh, the next steps from here is to get a smaller chip and to get another classic that can be sacrificed, that I can market accurately, and then take the old chip off, and then possibly even dump it again, just to make sure that I have a proper dump. I don't think the dumps are tied to the consoles at all individually, but whatever, we'll try it anyway. So basically then get the same size chip, physical same size chip, dump it, dump the old one, or mark it first, dump it, and then put the new one back on after you write to it. So that's basically going to be it for today. I'm going to go relax now. It's Saturday and it's about 5 o'clock, 5:30. No, whoa, 7:30. Holy cow. I'm going to try to work on my car too, because my brakes are shot. So thanks for watching. I think from now on, I'm going to, whenever I do an install for the Super Storage, I'm just going to do like a half-hour stream or whatever on how to solder them. So subscribe if you want. If you want to watch a stream on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, make sure to hit the bell. You don't necessarily have to subscribe, but hit the bell, because otherwise you won't get notified that the stream is live. And I'll try to source some chips. I'll talk to JW Pepper, see if he'll send me the board that he says that he's gonna sacrifice, and then we'll move from there. So thanks for watching. Have a good Saturday, and I'll talk to you later.